Hello students, welcome back to my channel CBSE English by JRB Sir. Today we are going to discuss the sixth lesson from Flamingo, that is Poets and Pancakes by Ashoka Mitra. Yes, before going to that, please subscribe to my channel, and if you like my video, just like it and share also. Next, here, this lesson consists of 10 points that we have to discuss. The first part is about the author, the second part, makeup department, and the third part, makeup boy and his role, fourth part, Kotamangalam Subbu, the number two in that Gemini Studios, and lawyer's character, and sixth one, anti-communist views in Gemini Studios, and the seventh one is entry of MRA, Moral Rearmament Army, the eighth one, Stephen Spender's entry, and then short story contest, and the final one, the God that failed. Okay, the God that failed. It's a book. So these 10 points that we are going to discuss in this particular video. So I hope in this way no one had explained so clearly. Let us go through the lesson. Yeah, the first part about the author. Ashok Mitran was the writer. He was born in 1931 and died in 2017. A Tamil writer recollects his years at Gemini Studios in his book My Years with Boss, which talks of the influence of movies on every aspect of life in India. So once Ashok Mitran worked in Gemini Studios, and then he wrote a book called My Years with Boss, and in that book he had mentioned how films had become influential role in the society. The Gemini Studios, located in Chennai, was set up in 1940. It was one of the most influential film producing organizations of India in the early days of Indian filmmaking. Its founder was S.S. Vasan. So S.S. Vasan was the founder of the Gemini Studios. The duty of Ashoka Mitran in Gemini Studios was to cut out newspapers clippings on a wide variety of subjects and store them in files. Actually, that's his role, cutting the newspaper clippings and store them in separate files. Based on that newspaper clippings, he used to write some stories. That's what the purpose of asking him to cut the papers. And many of these had to be written out of hand. Although he performed an insignificant function, he was the most well informed of all the members of the Gemini family. That is what here he had done a very good job, and most of the people knew him, and he knew very well about all the people of the Gemini family. The following is an excerpt from his book My Years with Boss. Our present lesson, Poets and Pancakes, has been extracted from the book called My Years with Boss. Here boss means SS Watson. Yeah, the first in the lesson, the first part that we have to discuss is the makeup department. Okay, so the makeup department of the Gemini Studios was in the upstairs of a building that was believed to have been Robert Clive's stables. Okay, stable means that means it's a shed for horses. Pancake was the brand name of the makeup material that Gemini Studios bought in truckloads. Pancake is the brand name of the material, makeup material. So in olden days, those people used, but the modern actors or the actresses might not know all these things. Yes, the makeup room was full of lights and mirrors. Because of those lights, room was so hot that lights emit some heat. That's why the rooms were so hot. Even though actors must come here for getting makeup, that means to look good in the movies, they must come here and get makeup. The makeup department was first heeded by many people from different parts of India, like a Bengali, Kannadiga, a Maharashtrian, an Anglo Burmese, and the usual local Tamils. That means it was first headed by one Bengali, later one Dharwad, some Kannadiga and Maharashtrian, and Anglo Burmese, and some local Tamils also. That means Gemini Studio followed national integrity by giving chances to all the people of Indian states. That means before Doordarshan started National Integrity, that program, they started already Gemini Studio. A strict hierarchy was maintained in the makeup department. Hierarchy means here order, senior to junior, something like that, official to clerk, something like that. The chief makeup man did the makeup for lead roles like a hero, heroines. His senior assistant, the second hero and the heroine, and the junior assistant, the main comedian, and so forth. The players who played the crowd were the responsibility of the office boy. So, crowd people, that means for those crowd, office boy used to do the makeup. Who is this office boy? Yes, the office boy. The second person that we have to discuss. That means first part is makeup department. The second part, the office boy. The makeup department had an office boy, though called as a boy. He was not a boy, but he was in his early 40s. But his job was boy, office boy. He came to studios with a hope to become a star actor or a top screenwriter, director, or lyrics writer. He was a bit of poet. He was a bit writer also. While Ashokamitran was doing his job of cutting papers, already we discussed in the beginning of the writer, there is a lesson about the writer. He thought that the writer, that means Ashokamitran, was doing nothing but cutting papers simply. That's why he used to enter into his room and narrated the stories which he had written. Ashokamitran expected a crowd shooting to escape from him, because whenever there is a crowd shooting, he would be busy. That office boy would be busy with doing the makeup for all the crowd. That is why he expected that crowd shooting to escape from him. The third person that we have to discuss here is Kotamangalam Subbu. In Gemini Studios, Subbu was number two. Everyone and every issue came to him for solution. In the beginning, he had no bright career, even he was not so well educated comparing to our boy. Boy means office boy. Being the Brahmin was the main asset for him. Because of that quality, that is being a Brahmin, he was exposed to rich occasions, and thus he had been successful. Apart from that, he was highly talented in making films. He was a tailor made for films. If there was a problem in shooting difficult scenes or situations, he would come up with many options. He was also a writer. He had written a book called Tilana Mohanambal with dozens of very perfectly sketched characters. He quite successfully recreated the mood and manner of the Devadasis of the early 20th century. So he was a writer we discussed. He had written a book called Tilana Mohanambal. It's about the Devadasi system. That he had sketched every character perfectly. Even though he was a charitable man, he had some enemies. Maybe it's because of his closeness with boss, or maybe his appearance gave the impression that he was a psychopath. Psychophant. Here, psychophant means here a person who is very close to the boss, and sometimes it gives the negative impression for the viewers. That's what. The next character we have to discuss is lawyer. There was a lawyer in the story department of Gemini Studios. He was a legal advisor, but everyone called him the opposite, means illegal advisor. Once an extremely talented actress spoke harshly about the producer. He secretly recorded, he in the sense our lawyer, recorded the voice of the actress. She was dumbstruck to listen to her own voice in the recording machine. Thus, she could not recover from the terror she felt that day, and thus she ended up her bright career in that way because of him. Right. While all the other employees of the studio wore khadi dhoti and shirt, he wore pants and a tie, and sometimes a coat that looked like a coat of mail. He was a neutral man among those people like Khadi or Gandhiites and Khadiites. The boss had once given him the opportunity to produce the film. He used a lot of raw stock and but that had been a flop film. Later, the boss closed the story department and the lawyer lost his job. It was the first time that lawyer lost his job because of the story department. Next, we have to discuss the point is anti-communist views in Gemini Studios. Yes, Gemini Studio had a fine canteen in those days. Every writer used to visit this place. It seemed nice. It served nice coffee every time. All the writers used to come and have a fine time here. All the writers and actors gathered here and discussed different things there. All the people in Gemini Studio were anti-communists. They hated communism because they believed that a communist was a godless man. He had no sentimental love towards anyone. He had no guilt about killing even his own parents or his children. He was always out of he was always out to cause and spread unrest and violence among innocent and ignorant people. That is what their belief. So communists are very violent people. They don't have any mercy to kill their parents or children. That's what their opinion. And next, after that, moral rearmament. And the next point that we have to discuss here is moral rearmament army. Gemini Studio hosted Frank Bookman's Moral Rearmament Army. It was a counter movement to international communism. Nearly 200 people from different nations included in the group. They played two plays which had become popular in Madras in those days, Jotun Valley and The Forgotten Factor. These two plays. The 600 families of Gemini Studios employees enjoyed these plays very well several times. The message of the plays were usually plain and simple homilies. Homilies means religious and spiritual. But the sets and costumes were first rate. Madras and the Tamil drama community were terribly impressed, and for some years, almost all Tamil plays had a scene of sunrise and sunset in the manner of Jotun Valley with a bare stage, a white background curtain, and tune played on the films. That is what here, this is how they played the scene. So the scene, the curtain, pure plain curtain and some flute played. This indicates sunrise and sunset. Yeah, curtain and a tune played on the flute. With the entry of MRA, there was no change, but the employees of Gemini Studio enjoyed a good time hosting 200 people of different hues and sizes. That means different colors and different sizes of people. That is what Moral Rearmament Army. And then Stephen Spender entered the Gemini Studio. Here, who is this Stephen Spender? So after some days, there was a buzz in the studio that a great writer from England would visit Gemini Studios. The employees could not understand why a writer visiting the film producing company, and later they came to know that he was not only a writer but also an editor. S.S. Vasan was also an editor of Ananda Vikatan, a popular Tamil weekly. That is why he was inviting that Stephen Spender to his studios. And there was another purpose that will be revealed at the end of the story or the lesson. By the afternoon, he visited Gemini Studio. All the employees gathered in front of the stage. The poet or the editor spoke in English. Nobody understood his language and accent. Because of his accent, in those days, nobody could understand English. A few words like freedom and equality were understood. He left by evening. And it was a question mark for all the people of Gemini Studios about his arrival, speech, and departure. Like why he came and why he left, nobody understood. Next, there was a short story contest. What's that? Ashok Mitran was a prose writer. Once, the Hindu had published a tiny announcement in an insignificant corner of an unimportant page, a short story contest organized by a British periodical by the name The Encounter, that is British magazine. He made an inquiry about the magazine and he came to know that the editor of the particular magazine was none but Stephen Spender. Then he felt happy, who visited Gemini Studios. He immediately wrote his short story and sent it with a note that he was an employee of Gemini Studios. And the God that failed. Actually, we came to the end of the lesson. That is what the God that failed. It's a book name. What is this? Several years later, he left Gemini Studio time to roam in the streets of Madras. Once he observed some brand new books for 50 pies each on the footpath in front of the Madras Mount Road post office. Okay, he had seen some books, and those books cost just 50 pies, and they were special low priced student editions in connection with the 50th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. Okay, so on the occasion of that Russian Revolution 50th anniversary, they released these books. He bought a book which named The God That Failed. It was written actually in 1949. That book was written by six eminent men of letters in six separate essays. So that book consists of six essays written by six eminent writers. It described their journeys into communism and their disillusioned return. That means they liked in the beginning communism, they went into it, and later, after they had gone into communism, they were confused. And what is this? Is it communism? Like that, they understood and they came back. And thus, they wrote their essays how they had been attracted towards communism and what they had experienced in communism and why they came back out of that communism. That's how they had written their experiences in that particular book. And then thus, he had taken that book and read it. After reading that, suddenly he realized why Stephen Spender visited Gemini Studio some years back. Then he understood, oh my God, he came to Gemini Studio at the time and we did not understand. It was a mystery for us. Now he understood why he came. You know why he came? It was to speak about communism and its disillusions or disbeliefs. That is why he came over there. Okay, there ends the lesson, my dear students, and I hope you understood the lesson.